This is the story of EDVARD Grieg, the story of the little boy who made music in the land of the midnight sun. This is the picture of a boy who was born in the north of the world. He loved his mother country and the music which the people sang. But he had music all his own that sang and sang in his heart. It was happy music and sad, solemn and joyous. You will hear it someday and love it all. Even when this little boy was in the primary school, the music knocked at his heart's door as if it would say, "Let me into the world so that people may hear me." When he was 12 years old, he started out one morning as usual, but instead of taking school books, he took with him his music writing book, which contained what he termed Variation on a German Melody, Opus 1. Can you not imagine how proud he must have been of his Opus 1? His schoolmates were very proud to see the music of their companion EDVARD, but alas, while they were looking at it and talking about it, whom do you think came creeping up behind them? Well, the schoolmaster, to be sure. He gave little EDVARD a rough shaking up, and told him how severely he would be punished if ever he brought such nonsense to school. Poor old schoolmaster. He did not know what EDVARD Grieg would one day mean to the land and people of Norway. For EDVARD loved not only the music that kept singing in him, but he loved Norway and all its people. Do you think anyone could help loving such mountains as these? But all the grown-up folks of EDVARD's world did not call his music rubbish. His mother loved music and played beautifully. It was for her that EDVARD had his first lessons, just as Mendelssohn was first taught by his mother. Then one day something wonderful happened. A great violinist, Ole Bull by name, visited the Grieg family in the country. He was so kind to the little composer that the boy just loved him. Ole Bull had traveled the world over playing the violin. He looked over EDVARD's compositions and made the boy play them to him. You can see him nodding his head in pleasure as he listens. His fine eyes are lighted up. He tells the boy's composer that the music is quite good, but that there is a lot for him yet to learn. So he must study earnestly and make many sacrifices. Then Ole Bull sits down and talks with Father and Mother Grieg. It is a serious talk, as one can see. Finally, when the talk is finished, Ole Bull takes the wondering boy by the hand and says to him, "You are going to Leipzig to study and become a fine musician." So EDVARD Grieg left his home city Bergen and its mountains, its fjords, its people, his father and mother, and traveled south through Norway, across the water, and into Germany. No doubt he was a lonesome boy. Life had become serious all at once, and there was so much to be done. It was all strange and new. Instead of hills and waters of the fjords, there were tall, dark houses, gloomy streets, and lots of hurrying people. But he soon grew used to it all, and was as busy as he could be with lessons in piano and harmony. Just as in the earlier days in school, so in Leipzig. EDVARD wrote music as it sounded in his heart. In the harmony lessons, he could not make himself write playing chords to the bass, which was given him as an exercise. He wrote the light, airy, lovely, fanciful tunes and rhythms that were singing within him. And just like the schoolmaster at home, the harmony teacher shouted at him, saying, "No, that is all wrong." His harmony teacher was E.F. Richter. But you remember that Ole Bull understood the boy's music. While here in Leipzig, there were many who understood it too. Bit by bit, EDVARD made friends who loved to listen to his pieces. One of them was Niels Gade, a fine musician in Denmark, who was a friend of Schumann's, who one time wrote a northern song on the letters of Gade's name. It began like this. And so EDVARD, too, once wrote a fugue on the letters G-A-D. So inspiring was his music study that EDVARD worked very hard. He composed a great deal of music which slowly made friends for him. Robert Schumann was one who spoke kindly to the young Norwegian and his music, and so he grew and improved. Because he was true to his talent, he made many friends not only in Leipzig, but all throughout Europe, as we shall see. You will learn someday the names of many of the people who became friends of Grieg. There were Richard Nordrich, and later on Franz Liszt. Grieg became one of the group of great Norwegian artists in which Henrik Ibsen and Bjornstjerne Bjornson were prominent. Indeed, Grieg wrote the music to Ibsen's Peer Gynt. One of the greatest pleasures of Grieg's life was Bjornson's patriotic poem to his own music. One day Grieg showed Gade a composition called In Autumn, which Gade did not like. "It is too Norwegian," he said. This pleased Grieg, although Gade told him to go home and write something better. He was as nearly rough as Grieg's schoolmaster. But one day later a prize was offered in Sweden for an orchestral composition. Grieg's In Autumn won the prize, and Gade was one of the judges. We wonder if he forgot about it. Grieg married his cousin Mina Hagerup, to whom he dedicated his famous song, I Love Thee, but the mother of his bride did not think highly of him. "He is a nobody," she said, "who writes music that no one cares to listen to." But people were beginning to listen. After a concert in Christiania, entirely of Norwegian music, the government gave Grieg a small pension and he went to Rome. Here he had a fine meeting with Liszt, who asked Grieg to play. Then Liszt took Grieg's manuscript and played it at sight, to his great delight. When Grieg bade goodbye to Liszt, the famous pianist, he said to him, "Keep on, you have talent and ability. Do not let one discourage you or frighten you." So sensitive was Grieg about music writing that he never allowed anyone to watch him. So he had a little house built in the mountains where he could work at his leisure. This he called a tune house. There was only one room, and it was all for the world, like a little playhouse that children have. In it was his piano, and often when he was playing, the Norwegian peasants used to group themselves outside the door, sometimes joining in the singing and then again dancing to the delightful folk tunes and dances. Here are some pictures of Grieg as he looked in later years. As a boy in Leipzig, he worked too hard, and sickness made it necessary for him to return home. From this sickness he would never fully recover. All his life he was frail and unable to endure severe tasks. In appearance, Grieg was short and rather bent in figure. His hands were thin but fine and strong for the piano, although one of them had been crushed in an accident. His eyes were deep blue, they looked straight at you, and were full of life and kindness. Grieg was merry of nature, a lovely companion, full of fun and company. Sometimes, however, he was sad and melancholy like his own music. Someday you will learn the names of many of his compositions, and among them you will love such pieces as The Birds, In Springtime, Arietta, and the Peer Gynt music, Piano Sonata, and the Piano and Violin Sonata, and lots of lovely Norwegian dances and tunes. Indeed, he has composed many compositions which you will number among your favorite pieces. Three great names stand out more than all others in the musical history of Scandinavia. You have learned two, Edvard Grieg and Old Bull. The other is Jenny Lind, known as the Swedish Nightingale, who was loved not only for her wonderful voice, but for her kindness and noble nature. She was born at Stockholm in 1820 and died in England in 1887. In Sweden to this day, Jenny Lind is a great national personage. The people look upon her as they would Washington Irving, Lincoln, or Longfellow. She is very beautiful. Here's her picture. This is Jenny Lind.